Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Rising. Happy Friday. Saagar, what are we doing?
We have an amazing show for everybody today. We've got Bob Cusack, Hill's editor-in-chief, Governor Mark Sanford, who's challenging President Trump on the Republican side. CNN forgot Andrew Yang again on a graphic. Literally can't make this up.
They never
and
learn.
Joe Biden's got some new fundraising numbers, and we're going to tell you all about that.
Yeah.
All that coming up today on Rising.
What are you looking at?
Well, President Trump suggested yesterday that China look into corruption allegations against Joe Biden's son Hunter, igniting a media firestorm across Washington. The condemnations came flooding in. Calls for the release of the transcript were immediate, and the Ukraine cycle played itself out again in real time. Underlying all of this is, of course, the rock-solid belief by our political class that there is nothing to see at all regarding Hunter's business dealings.
I mean, the fact that my predecessor had a son who was paid $50,000 a month to be on a Ukrainian board at the time that Vice President Biden was leading the Obama administration's efforts in Ukraine, I think is worth looking into.
Well, CNN literally accused him of lying for saying something that I'm willing to wager anyone watches the show agrees with, even if you don't like Mike Pence. CNN has decided Hunter Biden is an obvious Eastern European energy savant. And they've also decided he is now the greatest Chinese financier since Jack Welch. All of us are now familiar with Hunter's seat on the Burisma Energy Board. But his business dealings with China haven't come under nearly as much scrutiny. That hasn't stopped, it seems, literally almost every anchor in the country from declaring him innocent. So, let's review the facts, shall we? Hunter accompanied his father on a 2013 trip to Beijing, catching a ride on Air Force Two. Days later, a private equity firm called BHR Equity Investments raised $1 billion, later $1.5 billion, in funding from the Chinese government. Literally, the company's largest shareholder is the Bank of China. Guess who sat on the board of that company? A Mr. Hunter Biden. Get this, while in China, Vice President Joe Biden shook hands with a man named Jonathan Lee in his lobby. Innocent. Hunter Biden got coffee with Jonathan Lee. His lawyer says just a social call. Weird, though, because Jonathan Lee went on to become the CEO of BHR Holdings, which won that loan from the Chinese government. Even better, he bought 10% of that company in October, shortly after his father left the White House. Now, Hunter's lawyers say he wasn't paid to be on the board, and he hasn't received any income from it. Yet. He still owns 10% of that fund. He was sitting on the company's board. You don't think he has any incentive whatsoever to pull some strings? What if he sells that share? How much is it worth? These are obvious follow-up questions that I guess a normal journalist would ask, but alas, I guess it falls upon Crystal and me. The problem for Biden is, of course, that he has locked himself into a story which is very hard to believe. Listen here where he claims that he never once discussed his son's business dealings.
I've never spoken to my son about going to
And so how do you know?
Let's talk about, here's what I know. I know Trump deserves to be investigated. He is violating every basic norm of a president. Everybody looked at this, and everybody's looked at it and said there's nothing there. Ask the right question.
Every single person watching this program knows that the fact that Hunter was involved in these deals is unseemly and a problem. The media excuses it because it's just so run-of-the-mill for them and not worthy of any real scrutiny, because that's just how this town works, after all. Consider how routine's Hunter position is. In 2002, George W. Bush's brother Neil signed a $400,000 consulting contract to advise a Chinese semiconductor company, which was founded by the son of the Chinese president. Our system is infiltrated, corrupt, and rotten. And Hunter is just the latest embodiment of this. Democrats and the media are fooling themselves if they don't see just how much more there is. And while all this is going on, Elizabeth Warren's entire candidacy is predicated on rooting out corruption and shutting down the interests of the powerful. But she can't condemn this in full. What does it actually tell us about her? And Crystal, this is something that I've just been hammering home, because it's like I think you've said from the very beginning, is that this type of behavior needs to be called out from the very beginning, and if you don't, it will devolve into a Hunter versus an Ivanka Trump Nord Stream deal. Everybody will just pick their side, and everybody else in the country who's sane thinks that this is disgusting. All of this type of behavior.
If you want to understand why we have Donald Trump in the presidency, look no further than how standard this type of corruption that Hunter Biden is implicated in.
Like Neil Bush, that's the same thing.
And the fact that is normal, that's actually exactly the issue here. The other thing I was thinking about this week that's amazing to me is Democrats actually think they're winning right now.
I know.
Like they you know, Trump did his whole like basically China, if you're listening, investigate Biden thing. They're like, oh, we've got him now. Like, all you're doing is calling further attention to the rot at the core of Biden and, frankly, almost all of the Democratic. But that's the real reason why they can't call him out, because so many of them, it implicates their own lives, their own family members, their own associates, so they can't do it. It's very, very telling that of all the things that the president has done, the one that triggered the impeachment inquiry is when he went after essentially an elite institution. When he went after one of their own, that's the thing that triggers it.
That's the one thing you're not allowed to investigate. Start looking at the balance sheets, financial disclosures of members of Congress, Dianne Feinstein, Nancy Pelosi, a lot of these establishment Democrats. There's quite a bit to see there.
It's disgusting.
Next on Rising. On the 2020 Dem debate stage, how will the candidates handle the questions raised by impeachment and Hunter Biden scandals?
Also, the White House wants an impeachment trial. What would that mean for the moderate Republicans in the Senate? The Hill's editor-in-chief, Bob Cusack, answers some of these questions next.